Trevor Engelson's family knew something was amiss, even before he said a word, before his 10-year silence finally broke. They saw him devote all of his time, loyalty, and devotion. They did, however, notice something in Meghan that he did not. According to people close to Trevor, his family noticed a change early. The affection was not reciprocated. There was an imbalance in the respect. The two sides did not experience equal growth in love. Additionally, Trevor's family subtly withdrew while he made every effort to keep the marriage intact. Their rejection of Meghan was not motivated by prejudice or pettiness. Rather, it was a deeper reaction to the sense that Trevor was investing himself in someone who was already forging a life apart from him, a feeling that the foundation of the relationship was a partially false truth. However, what was that reality? What was the invisible crack that didn't show until the marriage finally failed, and why Trevor has finally revealed to the world the reason his family left after almost a decade of silence? Meghan allegedly made a confession behind closed doors at the start of the story, a revelation that would characterize the ensuing heartache. Meghan Markle was a woman standing in front of the man she thought she would spend the rest of her life with before she met a prince and rose to become a duchess and a world-renowned figure. Those closest to Trevor Engelson also claimed that she told him something that completely altered the trajectory of their marriage. Meghan allegedly told Trevor that she was unable to conceive. The news wasn't easy for Trevor. It was a profound change in the course of their future. The dream had included starting a family together. However, he realized then that the dream would not come true. He didn't dispute. He didn't put her under pressure. He also didn't ask her any questions. He just adjusted, because you accept the path that someone says is in front of you when you are in love. Trevor used this new reality to reshape their marriage. It was never used against her by him. He never questioned her motives. Since he thought their relationship was based on honesty and could not be broken, he just accepted a future without children. However, that acceptance was shattered years later when Meghan and Prince Harry welcomed not one, but two children. Rumors circulated among Trevor's friends that he was not upset. He was lost and confused. It felt like sand all of a sudden, the foundation he believed his marriage was built upon. Now, the truth he had believed appeared to be a painful query. Was this something she never meant to tell him, or was this something she once thought? What had felt like love suddenly turned into a sense of betrayal, the kind of betrayal that causes a family to see a relationship their son refused to see clearly, take a step back, and question everything. This secret is where Trevor's story starts, because it was the silent fissure that would ultimately cause the marriage to fall apart. The way their marriage developed made it impossible to ignore the crack, even if the first one was caused by the secret about the children. According to those close to Trevor, he is the type of man who demonstrates love through effort rather than words. Additionally, Meghan's effort was constant throughout his early career. Trevor did something that many partners wouldn't do when Meghan moved to Toronto and got suits. No matter how far it took her, he kept up with her pace. In an effort to maintain the bond across borders, he flew out frequently while balancing passport stamps and production schedules. In order to be nearer, he checked in between her long filming days, mailed care packages, and even looked into moving some of his work. Trevor was fully committed, not just helpful. Meghan, however, leaned away the more he leaned in. The couple's loved ones remember something unnerving. Meghan didn't back down from arguments or explosiveness, not out of exhaustion or distance, but because her priorities were changing and Trevor wasn't a part of that change. She withdrew quietly, delicately, almost methodically. It was noticed by friends. Family felt it, even though Trevor didn't want to believe it. He sensed it. The marriage no longer appeared to be a partnership between two individuals. One person appeared to be holding it up, while the other was already making plans for the next move. Trevor was compromising, adapting, and bending. Meghan, however, was advancing, climbing, and finally vanishing. And Trevor's place in her world grew smaller as she rose higher. What was left was a marriage bound together by one heart, his own, rather than by two. All marriages come to an end, but few do so with the kind of jarring silence Trevor experienced. Meghan didn't request a talk after almost 10 years of dating, years of trying, years of love, years of moving, and years of believing. She didn't sit across from him and give him an explanation for her departure. The phone went unanswered by her. She returned her wedding ring by mail. Just the ring, one package, no note, no explanation. As though it were just a returned item, the symbol of all their promises fell into a mailbox. Opening that package meant more to Trevor than the dissolution of a marriage. It was the thing that erased it. Long before the ring arrived at his house, he realized Meghan had psychologically left the relationship. According to those close to him, the shock of that moment struck him more forcefully than any argument could. There was no attempt to mend what had been damaged, no final discussion, and no closure. Just silence, just absence. And a fresh set of inquiries started to reverberate in that quiet. What else was he unaware of? What more had she concealed? She intended to outgrow him if their relationship had been a stepping stone. At this point, everything made sense to Trevor's family. Trevor's commitment to someone who was already half out the door, the early uneasiness, and the emotional imbalance. A marriage was not simply ended by the mailed ring. It validated all the silent fears they had suppressed. And when the dust settled, there was no escaping the truth. Instead of just abandoning Trevor, Meghan threw away the life they had created together without turning around. Years went by. Trevor buried the past, rebuilt his life, and remained silent. Sources close to him, however, claimed that one particular detail ultimately forced him to speak up. His entire marriage was reframed by this bizarre and illuminating detail. Meghan allegedly made a vision board outlining her ideal future long before she ever met Prince Harry. Harry was in the middle of it all, not as a fantasy or a celebrity crush, but as a target. According to those who claim to have seen it, the board was a blueprint rather than a collage of dreams. Meghan had researched the royals. She had mapped out her desired course of action. The world would not hear this tale in the future. A spark, a fanciful blind date, a fairy tale that happens by accident. The fairy tale was written long before the first chapter even started, according to Trevor's circle. This realization struck Trevor like a slow, icy confirmation. For years, he tried to figure out why she slipped away, why she distanced herself, and why she returned the ring by mail without saying anything. The fragments suddenly came together to form a picture. Meghan had no intention of pursuing a mystery. She had a plan in motion. And all she had to do was turn the page by turning to him. If the vision board demonstrated intent, Meghan's subsequent actions demonstrated technique. According to insiders, she wore Princess Diana's favorite perfume when she finally met Prince Harry for the first time. Harry recognized the scent immediately. It was associated with comfort, grief, childhood, and memory. It seemed like fate to Harry. It seemed like strategy to Meghan's inner circle. This was no accident, according to those who knew her. Harry saw the moment as a sign that the universe was directing him, and as an emotional alignment. Others maintained Meghan had a detailed plan. She was aware that the strongest link to memory is smell. She was aware of the emotional response it would elicit, and she understood that familiarity could feel like fate for a man who was still grieving for his mother. This was subtle, delicate, psychological, and effective manipulation, not the loud, overt kind. Harry wasn't merely smitten with Meghan the moment she engineered captured his heart. He fell in love with a woman who knew just which part of his heart to tug. Years later, Trevor reportedly noticed a pattern after hearing this. On a royal stage, he sensed the same subdued intentionality that he had felt during their marriage. When Trevor's secrets started to spread, Harry was the first to be affected, not Meghan. The prince was clearly shaken, according to people close to the Montecito family. He had stood up for Meghan for years against the palace, the media, and anyone who challenged her account. Persuaded that he knew the real her, he supported her through every storm. However, the storm this time wasn't coming from critics or tabloids. The man who shared her home prior to the reinvention was the source of it. The man whose words were more difficult to ignore. The man who loved her before the picture. Rumor has it that Harry retreated into the mansion's private areas, preferring to remain silent rather than engage in conflict. He wasn't upset. He was perplexed. He was torn between the version of her he never really knew and the one he married. Harry allegedly said something that went deeper than anything else, according to one source. Don't hold the palace responsible for everything. Exhaustion was indicated by that one line, the disintegration of the victimization and persecution narrative Meghan constructed. Harry was not standing up for her for the first time, is asking her questions. This tension is no longer subtle, according to those close to the couple. You can see it, it's getting wider. And it all started with the man she left behind's soft voice. Following Trevor's disclosures, Meghan's public calendar abruptly became vacant. A well-known summit for women in business was canceled. A New York charity Q&A event was canceled. A number of PR engagements were discreetly dropped from future plans. She just couldn't handle the media, according to people close to her. She had no safe answer for the first question, which she knew would be about Trevor. The Duchess, who had once bravely faced the cameras, now backed off into quiet. And there was a message in that silence: suspicion, not strategy, not strength. One supportive audiences started looking back at her interviews with fresh perspectives. Now the confessions, the tears, and the accusations of silence are all reenacted through a prism of uncertainty. Her greatest asset, her brand of authenticity, now appeared to be a well-staged performance. Whispers coming from Trevor's side, however, pointed to something much more serious. He hasn't given everything away yet. According to people close to him, the public's current understanding is merely a small portion of his knowledge. The most damaging details were allegedly withheld by him out of respect or restraint. However, given Meghan's intense efforts to silence him, he might no longer feel bound to keep quiet. There have been references to a second interview, this time with receipts and a memoir. Her long-cultivated image is starting to crumble. Not from tabloids or palace insiders, but from the one man who knew her before she changed who she was. The conviction that no one from Meghan's past would ever come forward has been the foundation of every story she has told: interview, documentary, and meticulously planned moment. However, Trevor took the initiative, and now the truth is coming to the fore. Reinvention is survival in Hollywood. It's rebellion in royalty. Meghan, however, is standing on the brink of reinvention's ultimate limit in the world of truth. Meghan's silence becomes more audible as Trevor's close associates rumor about additional disclosures, more records, and a complete story of their marriage. Her legal team might press. Her public relations team might be spinning. Her image might change repeatedly. However, her future is no longer being aided by the past. The one sound she can't stop is Trevor's voice, which has been silent for 10 years. He is credible, not because he is noisy. He lived the truth she attempted to rewrite, not because he is vindictive. The truth has finally emerged from the shadows, not because he desires fame. The world is now faced with a question that Meghan is powerless to manipulate, script, or win over. Who else from her past might speak next if Trevor has finally done so? The story doesn't end here. The reckoning is just getting started. The truth that won't remain hidden, the silence that will shatter, the crack that will deepen. The entire world is observing, because the other dominoes never remain upright for very long after the first one falls.